Oh, hey, welcome everybody. Sorry about that. We had some sound issues. So I had to get those fixed real quick. So
just a little mix-up.
Hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully we sound good. But yeah, if I had gone on time, it would have sounded echoey and not very good. So welcome. It's Friday. It's 4 p.m. Pacific. It's time for Pathfinder Friday, and today it's kind of a look back, if you will, a retrospective. A little bit of a what did we do for the past 13 weeks, and to do that we've got Mark Seifter in the building. Welcome back, buddy.
Thanks.
We have to wait for applause because they're cheering right now.
Oh, okay.
So anyway,
applause emojis.
Yeah. So this is actually the funniest thing about you having done 2 chapters on the Doomsday Dawn that we were doing was that you were slated to do 0, and you ended up doing 2.
I was the understudy for all chapters. If the GM did not show up, I ran that one.
Yeah, exactly. And that happened twice.
Yeah.
And there was one where you were going to start but not finish.
Well, no. I just was not going to be on any of them.
No, but I mean, there was going to be one that the original person was going to do the first episode, and then you were going to come in and fill in for the second. But we decided, you know what, you should just do both of them.
I think it was the reverse, sort of. There was an option, because it was Eric, and he went to like New York City Comic-Con during the first half. The question was, after I had filled in for the first half, was it really worth it to have him come back in partway through and have to pick up from my notes? And it seemed like it wasn't.
Yeah.
Whereas James, who wrote the 7th part, just couldn't make either of them.
Yeah. It was, and I think that as things were ramping up for us with the show, everybody else had things ramping up also.
Sure.
Like when we get up against the holidays, it's everybody's time frame is so limited, you know. So thank you so much. It was a lot of fun. You actually spawned a Nightbot command in the chat.
It was based on a Paizo Friday, not a Doomsday Dawn. It was based on somebody asking me, can you explain Dispel Magic as if I was 5 years old? And then I did, and I said I wasn't sure a 5-year-old could actually understand it. And somebody on the chat was like, my 5-year-old was watching, and I asked him, and he said he mostly understood.
Yeah.
So, and then people said that they wanted to have me explain things as if to a 5-year-old as a regular segment. So maybe as part of our retrospective, we can take a question near the end where I explain something as if to a 5-year-old.
That is true. We might need to do that. And speaking of Q&A, what we're probably going to do is start that a little bit earlier this time, because Glass Cannon is continuing their playthrough. They're going to be finishing chapter 5 tonight, I believe. And so we need to finish
in a bang.
I got it. So we need to finish right at 5, so we don't overlap with those folks. And we'll probably, if you're still in chat with us, we'll probably raid them and get that moving. So in the meantime, what I thought we might want to do, because you ended up being a part of the live stream just as much, as after we go over chapter 7 and kind of relive some of the events from that, then do a little bit of a look back and kind of talk about some of the things that we would probably do differently next time, some of the things that I felt like we did right, and all
just
of that.
The retrospective.
Pretty much.
Doomsday Dawn deconstructed.
We're going to deconstruct Doomsday Dawn deconstructed.
Yes.
All right, I like that.
And this final volume.
It's like Inception.
Yes.
Is that what it's called? Is that the movie?
I think it's Inception.
Okay.
Is the
All
movie.
right, so we're going to be doing some of that. So first off, welcome. What did you think about chapter 7?
So chapter 7 is definitely one of the tests that I was most excited about, and in some ways that I was the most curious about, because of the fact that one of the things that I've tried to test on my own time outside of work is an ongoing campaign, since you definitely don't get that with Doomsday Dawn. It's punctuated. The problem with ongoing campaigns, tend to start at 1 and go up as high as you can. I did get a group up from level 1 to level 13. That's pretty hard. It took a lot of effort, but that still only made it to level 13. So I really wanted to see some more testing of level 17, because I played a lot of high level in 3.5 and Pathfinder, but not everyone did, not everyone could, because it took an extreme amount of GM skill to get those levels to work. Some people online say Pathfinder didn't work at those levels or 3.5 didn't work. I disagree. I think it does, but you need a really special GM who's willing to put in a lot of hours and a lot of mastery to get it to work.
Right.
And I wanted to see how was it gonna go in the new edition. We were really hoping that would not be the case.
Well, and that was something that I was really curious about also, was the idea of playing level 17 characters and trying to figure out how does that work and all of that sort of thing. Did that, and if you missed it, that was actually one of the questions that we answered.
It was the question from yesterday.
Because we ran out of time. But we actually got done really early. We had time to do one question from the chat, and that was the one that we went with. And so if you want a little bit more in depth with the players actually answering that question also, that's at the end of yesterday's game. It's in our videos. It'll be going up on YouTube on Tuesday, I believe.
Right. Whoever asked it, that was great.
It was
if nobody had a question, I was going to ask that because each of our parts of Doomsday Dawn has had a playtest goal, and sometimes they were very complicated, like a death match with demons, and you're as until you die, run these 9 encounters that get of increasing waves, or things like what if you only fought one encounter in the same day, or But part 7 was very simply put. Let's do a kind of regular-ish, cool adventure at level 17.
Right.
Can we still do that? Does it get completely short-circuited by some of the high-level stuff? Does it still work? That was the goal. So they basically asked us, how did the goal work?
Right.
Which is a perfect question, and great to have the 4 players for that. We don't need to go into too much detail about it here, but to summarize, the players and I, the GM, agreed that what we had there was simultaneously sort of more solid and less of a sort of a rocket tag where the person who goes first ends the fight, while also feeling like you had a lot of choices to do on your turn, but not being overwhelming, as Ron said, with a series of 30 to 40 buff spells that took over an hour to prepare before each fight, which I feel you, Ron. That happens in all of my games at those levels too.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions that came up in the chat, but I kind of decided to not go with that one and hope that you answered the question.
I guess we did.
And the question was basically, does it feel bogged down? Does it feel like it still moves? And the group took care of that answer also within that. So it worked out pretty well. So yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, it's the final chapter. It's Doomsday Dawn chapter 7, when the stars go dark.
Yep.
And at the end, the PCs had kind of finished the game in a pretty quick fashion, and we had some time. So
it's a very hard fight. It could take a very long time.
Right.
But they threw all of their wishes into finishing a ritual that thus made it end pretty fast.
Yeah, we'll see. And it's funny because before we got started, you told me, you're like, there is a way to do this in a very fast fashion if they figure it out. And I could tell as it was going, I was like, oh, they're getting that now. But it was good. I really liked having time to do a little discussion at the end with the players there. I think that was the most important part. Having those players around the table, having just finished, and kind of getting their impressions and hearing where they were coming from. So how do you think Chapter 7 went for the stream?
I think it was pretty successful. There were no major hitches. I mean, the only minor hitch was the time we couldn't find the printouts I had of the monsters, and I had to go up and get them. And
did you ever find them?
Did you?
No,
They're supposed to be here.
I never found them.
I just found my backups, and then I went out, and that was even just very short because Leo was watching the stream, and he was like, "Is this what you meant about backups?" That was what I meant.
It must have been it. So yeah. But yeah, beyond that, a few little tiny hiccups. There was some sound issues, which I didn't tell you about for yesterday. When I was heading back to the desk, I inadvertently kicked the USB cable out of our mixer.
Gosh.
So you're talking at the beginning, and it goes up on Monday. You can see I put a little thing up, like a little sign. You're talking and we can't hear a dang thing that you're saying.
Oh wow.
And I get it fixed just as Katina starts talking. So you introduce Katina and I get it fixed.
Okay. So nobody will know that I'm Mark Seifter and that I am a designer for Pathfinder. They will know about Katina. So
what I should do is just take that clip and dub that into the beginning of the video that's going up on Monday.
And they didn't get the spoiler warning.
They didn't get this. Yeah, that is true. There was no spoiler warning, and then also you covered the secret to life, the universe, and everything, and you got the what is the question, and I was really fascinated by you just giving all these universal secrets, and thank you, I appreciate it. I'm sorry it's not going out.
It's too bad because I did mention how Aridin died. No, I didn't.
Now you can, yeah, well,
I gave the secret to life, the universe,
like the
and
message
everything.
board's dying right now.
But not Aridin dying.
No,
That's too much.
It's too much. So that was actually that was really fun watching this whole thing come to a close because it was 13 weeks for me. Actually 12. I missed one day, one of the streams.
Right.
When
and
I was
the
at
first one
TwitchCon.
was a one-parter.
And the first one was a one-party. Jason, because the idea was, and this was why we were going to do 2 weeks for everything, and we wanted to get it done right before Thanksgiving.
And we would have hit Thanksgiving if we had the extra week because that's next week.
So basically, I told Jason, I was like, you're gonna have to do chapter 1 in 1 week, and then and his Jason thing was like he knows it's gonna be really difficult, but he's like, yeah, I can do that, okay, and I'm like, let's give it a shot, and it worked out great. But
everybody has their Jason voice.
I didn't do my real Jason.
You did a little bit of one.
A real one.
Okay.
I have a different one that I really do. It's a little bit more, because Jason is a tall dude. It's got to have a tall voice. I think is Fair
enough.
But we wanted to finish before the Thanksgiving holiday, and so we knew that one was going to be a 1 week episode and.
Right.
Going on from there. So you were in some of the chat. You were in a lot of the chats for Pathfinder Fridays. Mm-hmm. You were in some of the chats, or at least reviewed a lot of the chat for the Doomsday Dawn live play, the stream, and all of that sort of thing. How much Twitch had you used before the game started?
For those, I guess just our Twitch stuff.
Yeah.
And other people showed me Twitch playing various video games and frustratingly going back to the beginning of levels because anyone could type something and then they would do that command, or dropping all of their Pokemon into the garbage, or know how it goes.
I know exactly how it goes. Yeah. And so, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. The real unicorn is actually saying in the chat that you've been a big hero for this thing. Like, there have been lots of times where you stepped up and really helped with the playtest presence in general, whether it's in chat on a Pathfinder Friday, or whether it's taking up the reins and having, I think, less than a week to do a chapter and run that for the next 2 weeks. And so
part 4, I found out that I was running part 4 at the Monday morning meeting.
Yeah.
And had to run it that week.
And you nailed it. It was perfect. It was really good.
Jason and Logan did some of my prep for me because they were like, Mark, you're not going to be able to do all of this prep. You don't even know what the prep is yet.
Yeah.
And so they helped me out so much. Otherwise, that would have been impossible. But it is true that, I do after hours or weekends looking at I can't help but look at the playtest, like the survey numbers or the forums and other things like that.
Well, the big help to me is because when I'm trying to do this, I've got monitoring the video, monitoring the chat, switching cameras, making sure, looking back at the other monitor to make sure our feed is doing good. And so I'm trying to still grab questions and engage with people on the show. So there are times when Q&A starts, it's just flying super fast and I'm missing stuff. So it's helpful, like when I see you pop on and it's like, oh, okay, you're answering a question that I missed or something like that.
I'll usually
huge help.
Answer either ones that were directed to me, which last time was one that particularly people did the at Mark Seifter, and then they directed it at me, or ones that are the kinds that we don't like to receive on Paizo Fridays at all, where they require very careful book lookup rules questions that I'm like, if this gets fielded, there's a pretty high chance that we're going to get it wrong, but I have my book.
Right.
So I can look it up.
And I don't even think it's unofficially. It's pretty officially, one thing that we try not to do is stop the show by having to go grab a rule book. Even though it's helpful, I'm always trying to say those are better for the message board when people can actually, we can look that up and give the interpretation as opposed to trying to talk.
So we make off-the-cuff rulings, but we're only about 50-50 on those because... You guys wouldn't ask it if it wasn't pretty ambiguous or hard to tell. And usually, I think the reason we're 50-50 or even worse record is that usually a question is asked when it's something that the rules don't let you do or do let you do, but that like reasonably, if you weren't reading them, you'd be like, I might be able to do that, but you actually can't, or I might not be able to do that, but you actually can.
Right.
And so they're like guaranteed that if you don't look it up, you'll probably just say the wrong answer, right? Because otherwise people wouldn't be asking, like, assuming that it's not super ambiguous in the text to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I found that interesting, and I decided that was why. After I was like, why do we keep getting these wrong?
Yeah, well, and that's kind of it. Like, usually if it's being posed as a question, it's already going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And you know, we're human.
It's either ambiguous or the writing is the opposite of what someone would think on their first try.
That's true. Yeah, it's up to interpretation or whatever. And if anybody's going to memorize all of the rules in the rule book, it's going to be you.
Sure.
But you don't have them all memorized.
I don't have them all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
People actually didn't ask me as many of the crazy rules questions, so I fortunately didn't get to be embarrassed by how high of a percentage I would have screwed up, because it would have been more than I wanted. Any number is more than I want.
That whole experience. Instead, I remember the one thing that caused ripples in the chat was when you had the top 5, because we were doing. Jason started a tradition of doing the top 5 things that are coming out in the next update.
Steven had cards with the numbers on them. That was cool.
Logan had cards. You came on, had no notes, and people were like, "Oh, there's no notes. Mark doesn't have any notes, so there's no top 5." And I knew there was a top 5 coming, but I thought it was awesome that you just had them all memorized. You know, it was.
It'll throw me off my game if I had the notes. Although Steven's ones that looked cool with the numbers on it were cool, so maybe in the future I could have a blank one that just has the number on it to show off.
Just as like a prop?
As a prop or something. I'm not sure. But ever since really, even since I was little, I'm bad at like handwriting and putting things down. It takes too much of my focus. So even in class, I wouldn't take notes because I would not remember the material. But if I didn't, and I could pay attention, I would.
Right.
So,
right.
Similarly, I'm bad with props overall. I did my best on these streams with the
with the
minis and the maps and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd like to try to run theater of the mind for encounters when I can. And I am very precise on where things are in my head, but weirdly I'm bad with props and things that are written down. So you may think, oh yeah, it was so hard, you had to remember all of those, but it's actually easier for me facilitated wise. Obviously, if I forgot it and I had it, I could look at it, right? That doesn't make me unable to do it with the prop, but it makes me worse at being able to talk about it.
That's fair. It's like gets in the way. And
yes.
I think one of the best things that you did with props was that before that first game 2 weeks ago, you brought in the green dragon. Yes. You were like, I'm just going to put this here. And
see if anyone notices it.
If somebody notices it, great. And it worked. Nobody noticed the extra green dragon around the table until it came out and was put on the map.
In the second to last fight.
Yes. That was great. I loved that. I thought that was a really cool thing. So,
it was just after John Oliver did a similar thing on his show where he had the Scientology that was on the whole time. I was like, well, I didn't even notice that on his show, but I guess he stole my thunder by 4 days with a much bigger and more interesting version of that.
Yeah, it's a little bit more in our wheelhouse because it's a dragon. So
we didn't have a giant volcano.
Although, no, never mind.
No, it's okay.
I don't have enough room in this place for a volcano. Are you kidding me?
But I thought part 7 went really well.
I was
actually worried it might not be as smooth, just potentially because I don't have as many data points. I have so many data points for some of the other levels, but at 17 my data points are sparser for my own personal games in the playtest, and it was smooth. They were kicking ass in so many ways that, like, the spellcasters were ridiculous, the martial characters were ridiculous, like the monsters didn't have a chance.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And I remember when everything started up and you put the map out and all that kind of stuff, and you hid the green dragon and all that sort of thing. And I remember thinking, I was like, oh, there's gonna be a dragon, and then I was like, but wait, they're gonna be level 17. And I'm because I've not been involved in a game like you were saying earlier. You tried to get people to 17. I've not been involved in a playtest game that high. So I was very curious to see how it was going to go.
The dragon himself was 17. he seemed to be like a pen pal druid buddy with Chris Sims because they both prepared the same exact spell set. They both had like the hard wiltings and a chain lightning in there, and it was like, oh, we got the same spells.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Did he try to eat the dragon?
The worm couldn't eat the dragon. I think the dragon was too big to eat.
Okay. Wait, doesn't Ron though have that? He can just
try to bite the dragon.
Bite him, yeah.
I don't think he ever made a bite on the dragon, but he did bite a bunch of other, and he may have bit the dragon.
Okay,
but
all right.
He definitely bit the Shoggoth.
He did. Yeah, he totally did.
And he had his jaws out for the dragon, but I think that they killed it before. He put his jaws out while the dragon was running away, but I think they may have killed it before he bit it.
Okay, all right.
But still, it was definitely interesting. We got to see a lot
I thought it was great.
Good data. Got to see a level 17 monk. I really want to see a level 19 or 20 monk more.
I would too.
But just because they have some abilities at level 19 or 20 that are like, this is really crazy. Is it crazy good?
Is it crazy good?
Or crazy problem? I don't really know.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, all of my rolls are automatically 10 or higher. That's pretty good. I can negate one thing that you do to me each round. Well, I could hardly do one thing to Katina each round to begin with. If she could negate one thing I could do to her each round, that might just mean I can't do anything to her on any round.
When she went on a tear, like with good dice rolls, it was
that's her offense.
Yeah.
But defense-wise, right? I was lucky to land something on her.
That's true.
And if she had a once per round, nope.
Yeah, she'd be like, I didn't roll very good. That's a 42? And you're like, yeah, I think that saves.
The Grim Reaper is just like, now you die. Katina's like, no, my once per round.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I want to see that play out in a game.
Well, we should do a Grim Reaper play test. That would be fun.
That would be awesome.
And we have it.
With the games that we were doing, we had the map and the minis, and that was a big to do to try to figure out in this little studio how to make that work. And so because it's a visual medium, it's like we're showing video, so we wanted to do that. And I'm getting in the chat, and you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. How do you think the play test or whatever ends up this evolving into?
Sure.
How do you think that would do as Theater of the Mind without a map and minis?
Well, I've been running War for the Crown for my home group that was my college group that we've all split off since then. And we usually are using Theater of the Mind for it. And it's fun. It's been doing fine. In some ways, it is easier than in Pathfinder First, because in Pathfinder First it was like, this spell is 25-foot range plus 5 feet per every 2 levels, and then now it's just like 30. So basically, when you're doing Theater of the Mind with a bunch of physics PhDs, then what you have is like sort of vectors of distances between everything, so you know where they are. And if you only have to check whether it's 30 or not, that's way better than if you have to check 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. You get a lot more confused. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think it'd be fun. I think it would work out. I think it would.
So somebody is saying that they're going to make a rogue character and call it Seifter. They're wondering how they can get the official license for that. So I'll probably have to connect.
They're making a rogue character called Seifter?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you're because you are the best
rogue? But Dan, you're the rogue guy.
I am. Look,
I actually usually play spellcasters in Pathfinder First Edition, but I also like rogues, and I keep trying to buff them. So some people got mad at me in Starfinder for all the things I put onto the operative, but I still maintain that the operative is not a problem in Starfinder.
No, it's fine. In fact,
they're a very solid class.
We're playing Starfinder, and I had to specifically not play
an operative
because I was like, I got to do something different. And actually, they're right. It is a super cool name. Seifter is a really cool name for a rogue, I gotta say.
Seifter? What about Cipher?
Cipher sounds like
CYPHER. Cipher.
Isn't that the Matrix? Wasn't there a guy named Cipher in the Matrix?
Maybe.
I think. Yeah.
Sure,
anyway,
whatever.
So let's do this because again we got to cut it early, or not early, but we got to make sure that we're done. Cipher, there's a Cipher in the chat.
There you go. There is a Cipher in the chat. But do you want to do any other retrospective stuff now?
I think the only thing that I would say, the only other thing that I would say is we knew going into this that it had all the earmarks of being a difficult show to continue, because it had different GMs every 2 weeks.
And different players.
Different players.
Other than the 147 group, so you don't get to grow with these players. Even when the players came back on, they had skipped a bunch of levels.
They were like new players at that point almost. And I think that, the story, while kind of connected, was very difficult to follow because everything else was so different.
It was spoilers for something that we didn't really want people to watch.
That's the biggest one, is I had to put spoiler on the front of everything. And it was that balance of a lot of people saying, no, you can spoil us, it's okay. And then other people saying, no, I don't want any spoilers. And so obviously they're not going to want to watch that. And I totally get all that. And so it was very difficult. And there was a lot of points against it. But we plowed ahead and said, you know what, let's do this. Let's still put this out, even though there are some differences that may or may not make it a show that's going to be successful.
Sure.
I think at the end of it, we did a great job. I think at the end of it, with what we had to work with and the dedication from people playing and GMing, and the time that it took from them, I think that we did a really good job, and we learned a lot.
Sure.
So that eventually there will be something to replace that game, and when it does happen, it's gonna blow you away. It's gonna be so good because we learned so much by doing this.
And I mean, thousands of people eventually checked out the first part of this stream. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. I think,
very first part with Jason.
Yeah, and we did see a drop off as the chapters went on, and I think that tells me that it's like people didn't want to, get spoiled or whatever.
Right, because our pace was very, very, very fast.
Incredibly fast. But we are definitely, I see in the chat. Thank you so much for the kind words also. But we are definitely going to keep streaming games. We're going to wait for the holidays to finish. Like the holidays are just really going to get in the way of any kind of cohesive schedule. Once that's done, we're already working on some games that will be streaming from Paizo Studios. And it's going to be good. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes,
so
we're scheming over here.
Yeah, Dan is trying. I am definitely trying all the time. Every dang day.
Always trying to improve the streams. We couldn't do it without Dan, everybody.
Let's do